All right, hello folks. Before we move on to 7.9, let's take a quick glance at 7.8 and some of the preceding chapters just to make sure we're all on the same page. Here we go. We've got mixed numbers, right? This is a mixed number. We've got a whole number and a fraction. Mixed number. Adding two mixed numbers together, fairly simple. Let's just add the whole numbers together, 1 plus 1. Add the fractionals together, or fractions. Sometimes when it's a mixed number, the book refers to the fraction that accompanies the whole number as a fractional. We'll call them fractions or fractionals, but anyway, 1 over 2 plus 1 over 2 is 2 over 2. So ultimately we've got 2 and 2 over 2. 2 and 2 twos, I heard somebody once say. It was funny. But let's rename that. More properly, it'll be known as 3. Right? Very good. All right, subtracting mixed numbers. Same thing. Let's subtract our whole numbers. 2 minus 1 equals 1. 3/4 minus 1/4. Well, 3 minus 1 equals 2. Keep it over that denominator, 4. 3/4 minus 1/4 is 2/4. Pretty easy, right? All right, here's where it was getting a little trickier over when we got to 7.8. We have a problem like this. 5 1/4 minus 3 2/4, okay, or 3 1/2. Normally we'd think this would be really easy, right? But the spot that we get stuck is when we try to subtract 1/4 from 2/4. You go into the negative there, right? So the book has you do what's called renaming. And there are two different ways to rename. The first way is to make both of these mixed numbers just fractions. Just change them both to fractions. They're obviously going to be fractions that are much greater than 1. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 1, 21 over 4. And then 3 2/4 becomes 14 over 4. Suddenly that's really easy to subtract, right? 21 minus 14 is 7, giving us 7 over 4. Now, if the book wants us to put that back into mixed number format, it would be 1 3/4, right? But 7 over 4 and 1 3/4 are the exact same number. All right, that's one technique for renaming. That's the most straightforward technique, but it also involves more work. The other way, which kind of involves a shortcut, it's a little bit trickier. However, it is less work. It's just borrowing what you need to borrow. So if we look at 5 1/4, let's just borrow a little bit. Instead of changing both numbers to fractions, let's just turn 5 1/4, let's rename it to 4 5/4. This top number, we can rename it to 4 5/4. It's the same number. We're just writing it differently to make the subtraction easier. So 4 minus 3 is 1, and 5/4 minus 2/4 is 3/4. So right there, you see side by side are our two techniques for subtracting these fractions or these mixed numbers, in which the top fraction is a smaller number than the bottom fraction. Okay, we get a little stuck there, it gets a little tricky. All we have to do is rename, and we've got two ways to rename. Now, I did all the problems from page, let's see, 433, and I'm just going to go over them. So follow along on page 433. Make sure that you showed your work. All right, we've got 6 minus 3 2/5. So for the first 6, I'm going to do the first technique where we change the numbers to fractions, where we just change the both numbers to fractions, and we're not working with mixed numbers for a minute. So 6 turns into 30 over 5. 3 2/5 turns into 17 over 5. Hopefully you can see how I got that. To put 6 over 5 would be 30 over 5. To make 3 2/5 a fraction with 5 as the denominator, 3 times 5, 15, plus 2 is 17. So we end up with 17 over 5. Now the subtraction is really easy. 30 over 5 minus 17 over 5 is 13 over 5. And if we wanted to rename that to a mixed number instead of a fractional greater than 1, sometimes they say make sure that you write the fractional so it's not greater than 1. Well, if we're going to write the fraction so it's not greater than 1, we're going to have to do 2 3/5. 2 3/5 or 13 over 5. Those are the same number. Those are the exact same number. Actually, I think I made a small mistake on that one. 2 3/5. No, that's correct. All right, cool. All right, next one. Let's look at 5 1/4 minus 2 3/4, okay? Let's just change them both into fractions. 21/4 minus 11/4 is 10/4. And that rewritten as a mixed number would be 2 2/4. So 10/4 and 2 2/4, those are your two possible answers. They're the same exact number, just written in two different ways. All right, let's look. Which number are we on now? Number 4. Let me see. Let me look down at my book to make sure that I'm on the right one. Number 4, yeah. 9 3/8 minus 8 7/8. We'll change them both to fractions. 9 times 8 is 72, plus 3 is 75. So our top number is 75/8. Our bottom number is 8 times 8 is 64, plus 7, 71/8. 75/8 minus 71/8 is 4/8. All right. Let's look at the next one, which is, sorry, I have to keep checking. Short-term memory loss. Number 5. 12 3/10 minus 7 7/10. Let's just change them both to fractions because, yeah, 12 minus 7, that's easy. But 3/10 minus 7/10, I'm going to get a little stuck there. So we'll just change them over to fractions. 12 times 10 is 120, plus 3 is 123. 123/10 minus 77/10 turns out to be 46/10. 46/10, another way to write that would be 4 6/10. 4 6/10, 46/10. Cool. All right, next one. 8 1/6 minus 3 5/6. I'm going to change them both to fractions. I'm using that technique. Turns them into 49/6. And 3 5/6, another way of writing that is 23/6. Now we're just going to subtract them. 26/6. Another way of writing 26/6 is 4 2/6. These two numbers, 4 2/6 and 26/6, are the same. They've just been renamed. Okay? All right. And by renamed, I mean they're the same numbers. They're just written in two different ways. One's written as a fraction. One's written as a mixed number. Okay. So now we're going to switch to this other technique, which is easier. However, it can be just a little bit tricky to follow, but it is ultimately easier. Here's our problem. 7 3/5 minus 4 4/5. Now, like a normal subtraction problem, you look at it and you go 7 minus 4 is 3. But then you get to 3/5 minus 4/5, and that's the part that messes you up. So you've got to do a little bit of renaming. Instead of writing both numbers as fractions, we're going to keep them as mixed numbers. However, we're going to turn 7 into 6, and we're going to borrow that one whole, that 5/5, and we're going to add it over to the fractional side. So we're going to take away 7, and we're going to change it to 6. And we're going to use those numbers that we just took away, and we're going to add them to the fraction. So because we took away 5/5 out of the whole number side, let's throw them into the fractions. Suddenly the fraction, we've got 8/5. 7 3/5 is the same exact number as 6 8/5. There's just two different ways of writing them. We're writing it this way so we can make the subtraction easier. 4 4/5 stays the same. We don't have to do a thing to that. That's why this technique is easier. 6 minus 4 is 2. 8/5 minus 4/5 is 4/5. 8 minus 4 is 4. Keep it over 5. 4/5. 2 and 4/5. Okay? Let's get a little more practice at this technique. All right, this one you don't have to really do any technique. 10 minus 8 is 2. Half minus half is 0. Your answer is 2. Moving along. 7 1/6 minus 2 5/6. Okay, we're doing that technique where we're going to keep them in mixed numbers. We're just going to borrow what we need. So we're going to change that 7, that whole number 7, we're going to change it to 6. And then we're going to borrow that 6/6 that we took away, and we're going to add it over to the fractional side. So that's going to turn into 6 7/6, right? 6 7/6. Those two numbers, when I say those two numbers, I mean this number and this number, they're the exact same numbers, just written in two different ways. Okay? So now the subtraction becomes really easy. 6 minus 2 is 4. 7, 6 minus 5, 6 is 2, 6. Okay, let's do a couple more. All right, this is the type where you really appreciate this technique because it's so much easier. All right, 9 is going to become 8. And because we just took away 12 twelfths, we're going to put 12 twelfths over into the fractional side. So if we add that 12 twelfths over there, this top number is going to turn into 8 and 15 twelfths, right? 8 and 15 twelfths, and suddenly subtraction is very easy. 8 and 15 twelfths minus 4 and 7 twelfths. 8 minus 4 is 4. 15 twelfths minus 7 twelfths is 8 twelfths. Okay? Let's just do a little bit more practice at it. All right, 9 and 1/10 minus 8 and 7/10. All right, we're going to change that 9 that on the top to an 8. And then we just got 10 over 10 to throw over into the fraction side. So it's going to turn into 8 and 11/10, right? 8 and 11/10 minus 8 and 7/10 is 4/10. 8 minus 8 is 0. 11 minus 7 is 4. Keep it over 10, 4/10. And then lastly, 9 and 1/3 minus 2/3. Let's just borrow a little bit from that 9. We'll turn that 9 into an 8. And then we got 3 over 3 now to work with. We're going to throw 3 over 3 into that 1/3. So it turns into 8 and 4/3, right? 9 and 1/3 is the same thing as 8 and 4/3. It's just helping us do the subtraction. 8 and 4/3 minus 2/3. All right, so there's nothing to take away from the 8. 4/3 minus 2/3 is 2/3. So our final answer, 8 and 2/3. All right, guys, that was a little bit of a review of 7.8. Follow along closely, check your answers. Make sure you know both techniques. Hit me up with questions if you have them. All right, thank you.